In this section, you learned how to use conditional statements. Now let's make sure that you have your understanding right by writing a Python program. Now, so far in this course, we have been using Python's idle environment to practice the concepts. Now that we have practiced the concepts of conditionals, we will be writing a complete program in Python in a text editor. Now, the text editor which I will be using is the Atom text editor which we had installed in the beginning of this course. Now, let me open that up by hitting a command space on my Mac and entering Atom. Now, if you're on Linux or Windows, you can do that by hitting a Windows key on your keyboard and entering Atom. Now, in case you do not have Atom, that's completely alright. Just make sure that you have a normal text editor in which you can enter your Python code. That could be your Notepad or any basic text editor in your Mac or Linux. So let's get started. Let me first save this file. Your file name can be any name of your choice. I will be naming it as multiple since the program which we are dealing with has got something to do with finding if a number is a multiple of another number or not. Just make sure that you're ending it with the extension .py that denotes your file as a Python file. So now let's get to our problem statement. Our problem statement is to check if a number is a multiple of 3. And now if that number is a multiple of 3, we also need to check if that number is a multiple of 7 and print appropriate statements. So let me just write down that problem statement. It is to check if a number is a multiple of 3. And if it is, also check if it is a multiple of 7. So how do we check if a number is a multiple of 3? Now you must remember the modulo function, or rather the modulo operator which we had learnt. Now we will be using the modulo operator in this program. And how do we find if a number is a multiple? You divide that number by 3, and if the remainder of your division is 0, it means that number is a multiple of 3. To take an example, if I divide the number 6 by 3, and if the remainder of my division, which is denoted by the modulo symbol, if that has the value 0, that means it is a multiple of 3. Say for example, if I try to check for a number that is not a multiple of 3, for example a number 10. Now if I divide 10 by 3, the remainder is 2, which is a non-zero number. So what you need to understand is if the result of your division has the remainder 0, it is a multiple of 3, and if your result is a non-zero, then it is not a multiple of 3. Now let's first create a variable to hold our number. So let me create a variable called number and assign it with the value, say 6. Now what I need to check is if the remainder of division when divided by 3 is 0 or not. I do that with an if statement. So if my number modulo 3, so I'm dividing this number by 3 and checking if my remainder is 0. Now that's the Pythonic way of comparison, to use the is keyword, and then I print a statement telling number is a multiple of 3. So what does our problem statement say next? Now if the number is a multiple of 3, also check if the number is a multiple of 7. So I check if my number mod 7 is 0. This is to check if my number is a multiple of 7 or not. In that case, I will be printing a statement that says number is also a multiple of 7. Now what if the number was not a multiple of 7? In that case, I would have an else statement which would print number is a multiple of 3 but not a multiple of 7. Now let's see the output of this program by running this Python program. So first we will have to save the file. Go to File and click on Save. Now if you are on Mac or Linux, you can open your terminal to execute this program. And if you're on Windows, you could either use command prompt or you could use PowerShell, whichever you have been using as a command line interpreter. So I do that by hitting a command space and entering terminal. Now to execute my Python program, the syntax is to give python3 space the path to your file. Now this file multiple.py lies in my desktop, so I go to my desktop / and then I enter my file name, which is multiple.py. Now on execution of this, we can see that number is a multiple of 3, and since it is not a multiple of 7, we have the output number is a multiple of 3 but not a multiple of 7. Now let's try to do something different. So far in this course, we have been entering hard-coded values. Now what do I mean by hard-coded values? These numbers which you have entered, say for example the number equal to 6 which you have entered, the value is a part of your program and cannot be changed during execution. Now what we will be doing is to give the user of your program a prompt to enter the number and take the number from the user. So let me do that by first giving a prompt to the user with the print statement. So I'm telling the user enter a number, and then what I do is to read the input from the user, I use the function input. So input function lets us take input from the user. So whatever input is being taken from the user is being assigned to the variable number. Now let's see how this works by executing this program. Let me save it and open my terminal. Now if I execute this program, I can just press the up arrow key to execute my last executed command on terminal, and then if I press an enter key, that gives me a prompt to enter a number. Now say this time I enter the number 21. Let's see what happens. So that raises an exception type error. So what happened was your input function by default takes your value as a string. Now you cannot perform an arithmetic operation on a string. What you need is an integer number. So if you remember typecasting, to convert this into an integer, you need to enter int and then call the input function within parentheses. Now let's see what our output will be by saving it and executing it one more time. So this time I enter the number 21 and my output is number is a multiple of 3, number is also a multiple of 7. So now that you have a firm understanding on how conditional statements work, let's move on to our next section, which is about looping statements. Thank you.